All right, guys, so I'm John with ACI. I work in the Mississippi, Louisiana territory. We just kind of wanted to take a McHale baler here. This is a 17 machine. This only applies to the 16s and 17 models. Kind of just going to go over the net system, how it works, some of the few components on the net system, and what to look for if you are having a few issues. This baler's got a few thousand rolls on it, so we kind of left it dirty to kind of show you some areas that if you are having problems, you kind of know what to look for. So starting here, we basically got, this is our clutch system, which is going to engage when the net goes to tie. Basically, so just electric clutch engages this belt. Net brake releases, gets the belt turning, or the net turning, I'm sorry, which feeds the net down through the throat in behind this moving roller. Here, if you see, you've got a pulley here. This is what we're referring to as the moving roller. This roller is spinning constantly. Basically, that cylinder collapses down, which feeds the net into the bale. Some guys have had some problems. I guess a few kind of areas to look for. You got your net brake here. This is adjustment that needs to be done yearly. Very simple to adjust, but it is a wear item, needs to be adjusted. But basically the way that works is this engages, this belt turns, gets the net started, the moving roller collapses down, feeds the net into the baler. If you are noticing that your net is not starting, or the net is turning but is not putting net on the bale and it's feeding around this rotor, 9 times out of 10 it's this moving roller is not collapsing fully or is not spinning freely. So every year you need to check to make sure this moving roller is turning freely. Easy way to do that is just take your little belt off here and then reach in there and turn your moving roller. Make sure it's turning. Should be able to spin it by hand. This just like any belt, you know, it's a wear item. If it does get loose, this spring here is actually what's keeping tension on that belt to turn it. So if you've verified everything is moving right like it's supposed to, but your net's still not turning, come back here and you can visually watch this work. If this belt is slipping, you can call your local McHale dealer, ACI Distributors. We can get you this spring. We have replaced some of these springs, just they had a bad batch of springs, very few. Another area to check for if your moving roller is not collapsing all the way forwards or backwards is there's a slot behind the moving roller that in dry hay, you really won't see it in wet hay because you're not dealing with a lot of dust and trash, but in dry hay, sometimes you get enough trash built up in this slot, the moving roller can't move back and forth there all the way like it needs to. As far as the moving roller system goes, that's the main thing, is checking your net, your belt tension, your spring tension. One way you can check that spring tension to see if that's what it is actually take a piece of wire, tie it around 3 or 4 of the coils, collapse them down all the way tight so it's got more pressure. Some guys have called and said, hey, my baler won't go into auto. Check your door latch sensors. If your door latch sensors are not adjusted properly, it will not let the monitor go into automatic mode. Another thing, if you're running in a lot of thick hay and you've jammed the baler, you drop your floor, raise your floor back up, but it's still telling your floor's down, their sensor is right here that's reading the floor. If you get trash in between the sensor and the plate it's reading off of, it's not going to tell you that floor's up. So right here, if you'll look, you'll see a sensor of the LED. If that LED is not on but your floor's up, you've got too much trash in there, or your plate needs to be bent backwards up towards the sensor. Another area that you can collect trash is moving roller, of course. We just talked about that. Net knife system, check, make sure nothing's binding up in here. This is what's actually cutting the net. It's basically it on this side. Chain tension. Check your chain tension. This is your double duplex chain that's driving the rotor. If you notice your baler's jamming a lot and you've never looked at this chain, which at about 500 bales, this one will need to be tightened. That right there is about perfect tightness. You don't want it just super tight because it just causes more stress and wear on your sprockets. Where you adjust it is right here. You just got a jam nut and then a tighten nut. So just loosen your jam nut, run it down until you get proper tension on that chain, and then reset your jam nut. You have pickup chains on each side. You've got one on this side, two on the other, one for the pickup, one for the clutch. I'd say 300 to 400 bales once you start a machine. These will need to be tightened. Good way to check is to reach down and you can actually tell if they're loose, if that rotor is moving back and forth by hand. Beginning of the year, there's a few things you need to check. Of course, you need to grease the machine. 17 models have grease banks. Some of your 18 models, that's our 660 machines, will have auto greasers, so we've eliminated some of the grease banks. But pre-season checks, moving roller spinning. Make sure your moving roller's turning freely. We'll go over the net brake in a little while, but net brake needs to be adjusted properly. Another thing I like to do is when I first get in the baler to start operating it, I'll pull my net out of the net system here. I'll put the monitor in manual. I'm going to hit my net button, make sure my moving roller's collapsing. Then I'm going to hit my net button again to make sure my knife's tripping. I can reset my net knife from the cab by pressurizing the door down, or you can manually reset it on a 17 machine. But just, kind of go through the net functions. You can make sure they're physically working before you ever start rolling hay through the machine. On the other side, we've got a kind of a bill hook. It basically rides up and over a gnarled shaft. You want to make sure that is actually fully resetting over that gnarled shaft. If it's not coming all the way up, you've got something going on with your hydraulics or something of that nature. There is an orifice in this net cylinder. If you're running on a real small tractor that doesn't have real good hydraulic flow, we can pull this orifice out, drill it out a little bit bigger, and it'll help that net knife reset back and forth a lot easier. We don't recommend pulling it out and leaving it out because you're putting a lot of oil flow on that cylinder.